Welcome off the post. I'm Russ Cohen. We've got Anthony Mingione. And how are you?
Need some sleep.
Yeah, I get it. And Michael Jello, how are you?
I'm bleeping tired.
Yeah. Everybody's draggy a little. And we have Jan Levine on. Jan, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. All right. So Connor McDavid's back. I'm not surprised. When I saw that he was skating a couple days ago, and I knew he was coming back sooner. I imagine they had him in the hyperbaric chamber and everything else because they know every game he's out, the further they slipped.
No, exactly. Edmonton's just struggling like nobody's business. Darnell Nurse is a mess. Again, they're trying to find another defenseman to play with them. Their highest paid defenseman.
Yep.
And it's just, this is there. They got them in the hyperbaric chamber, which worries me a little bit because again, if you worry about a rush back here. But again, he has been practicing, and I'm not necessarily surprised. It's Vegas that they have him going up against again. This is a primary opponent potentially for them in the playoffs. So if they get to the playoffs, so it's going to be interesting to see how things play with him and whether or not, hopefully this won't be a mistake for Edmonton.
Mike, your thoughts?
Well, my usual thought that the Edmonton Oilers suck. But
beyond that, could you see maybe, talk about Connor McDavid a little bit?
Well, I constantly said that Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl were two of the top 5 players in the league. And this franchise for how many years has been on both of their backs. And now last year they were actually able to, put together at least a decent enough supporting cast that they could go through the playoffs. And we know that they had the easier of the paths because they played a bad LA Kings team. Then they played Vancouver, who didn't have the number one goaltender, and then Dallas, who had to play Colorado and Vegas. So they went. Now I give them a lot of credit for going to Game 7 against Florida when they were down 3-0. But I've never had a lot of respect for this team because they're just built the wrong way, and I think that McDavid coming back early is just a sort of symptom of what my main criticism of them has been.
Do you mean built the wrong way, like the Leaning Tower of Pisa? What do you mean by,
the Leaning Tower of Pizza? Oh no, I'm hungry. I built the wrong way in terms of you have to have more than. And this is my criticism of them.
But they made it. You saw how far they went last year,
Russ. But they finally did what they needed to do. And first of all, and by the way, the reason they didn't win was because their defense wasn't good enough.
We can also jump in this and just call it for what it is. It's the Leaning Tower of Leafsa.
That could be it.
Wow, that's a stretch. Oh.
Jam, what do you think?
So first of all, good to know different platform for me. Same Mike, so he hasn't changed in terms of his stripes. So it's good to know that he's the same, irrespective of where he is.
I'm as constant as the North Star.
No, that's a good thing necessarily, but good to know.
Don't guide yourself by it.
So a couple of things. So if you look at it though from a team perspective, right? Zach Hyman's struggling mightily this year. He finally got his first goal. He had 54 last year. That's a factor. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins not setting the world afire. Didn't have particularly great last year. That's a big contract that's not panning out. Vasily Podkolzin beat the living tar out of Jeremy Lauzon to have a
one punch.
You're gonna see a lot more of him in terms of probably second line. Just because he brings a physical component that team somewhat has been lacking.
Yeah,
he's got a little bit of skill, not necessarily where he thought it would be, but as Anthony said, I think was it that Nurse has been on for close to half of the goals that Edmonton had allowed this year, which is a number we said last year that the Nurse contract wasn't going to age well, and it's been proven right. So
it looks like a pumpkin basically that's already collapsing in on itself.
Their defense is brutal. Evan Bouchard's great offensively, and defensively he's still, I wouldn't call him a tire fire, but he's still struggling to kind of get to the position of being a true number one blue liner. And last year Stuart Skinner was great, but he doesn't have a lot of support in front of him, and he's actually being outplayed by Calvin Pickard right now is probably
Yeah.
outplayed Skinner. So when you factor in the defense and the goaltending, irrespective of what Draisaitl and McDavid, who was supposed to miss 2 to 3 weeks and is back in 9 days, irrespective of what both of those do, if you don't have the other components, and especially if Hyman's struggling, that's a team that's not necessarily going to go very far, but they have components. Hyman gets hot, Nugent Hopkins gets hot. All of a sudden, that offense perks up a little bit. It's a way to mask over some of the defensive deficiencies.
Yeah,
And I would
don't say pumpkin around Russ.
And I would add to the mix again. We do have to get back to what, talking about how they got to, as Mike said, they got to a Game 7 in a remarkable way. And I do, and you're going to say, well, that's that's last year.
Right.
I still, it's got to be the worst kind of hangover you could possibly have. Like it's almost would have been if they got swept in the final. To me, you have that sort of motivating factor to get back and do it. Whereas they literally just expended, and just came up short. And I have to think there's a little, they'll say they'll push it back. It's last year, but you have to think at least early on that this is something that still is maybe an element of their psyche for why they're just, and it's just like, we got to do this whole climb again. And it's, without that prize they could have had if they were able to pull off an historic comeback.
Yeah. And, just to answer Mike's pumpkin remark, a good pumpkin is a dead pumpkin. So bigger subject here now. I noticed when I got on my computer that there was an advertisement for maybe the most confusing online service ever. It is NHL TNT Max Hockey with Adobe this and Adobe that for $10 a month. It's like, again, I just have to ask the question, how many packages will NHL fans buy? Because there's got to be a limit.
Are they willing to sponsor us? We'll be happy to.
Yeah, sure. We're happy to push it, but
By the time you get the name out, Anthony, half the show's going to be over by the time you get the name out.
Right. But my whole thing is like, who on the panel is buying it just because of the Adobe sound and whatever else Adobe's doing for them? Like, it's just
Dolby. Are you saying Dolby?
Dolby. Sorry, I said Adobe.
I'm like, are we photoshopping the hockey game while we're watching?
No.
Dolby Acrobat. What's going on?
Dolby. Thank you.
Dolby. Oh, okay.
Good catch. But I mean, again, is this in demand? Is this like, it's just, I feel like fans have to buy 5 services now.
I'm waiting for Russ to say she blinded me with science.
Just to get the games.
But they're just following the model of the NFL. I mean, the NFL's on Prime. It's on in Major League Baseball. They're on Apple. They're on Prime. They're on this. They're on that. Yeah, and at a certain point, a fan is just going to say, "I'll watch the games that are on Yes and screw the other ones."
So, I mean, I used to have center ice years ago, right, with my DirecTV, and most people had the NHL package. And now with ESPN, if you have the ESPN Plus, you're getting all the games on ESPN Plus. Now, there is some kind of center ice package DirecTV. Far be it from me from being able to find the darn thing, and I've scrolled through probably hundreds of channels to figure out how to work it, and it doesn't work properly. But if you have NHL Network on your regular package, and if you have ESPN Plus, you're getting pretty much the majority of games. Granted, not as easy to watch unless you're watching on a smart TV. On your computer, you can kind of switch from game to game, though not as easy as it used to be with the NHL. But look,
you used to be able to get like 3. You get the windows. You used to get that. Now you don't get that.
You don't get that, which is disconcerting and frustrating. MLB has it where you can kind of switch from game to game to game because you have the little windows that are there.
Right.
It makes it a bit easier to follow, but I think it's going the nature of what all cable providers and everything else is going. It's going to cost you more money eventually to have all the various streams than it would be when it was kind of almost centralized, now that it's become decentralized.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. All right, so we'll go with the Rangers first, because I saw that Don LaGreca was on a show, and he said like something to the degree, hey, Igor Shesterkin, get all the money you can, but leave some on the table, so the team can be competitive. And here's my feeling about that.
Never ask a player. You never
hold on. I want to get my feeling, and then you can go next.
He had a conversation with Heinrich Lundqvist. That's where this came out of.
Okay, I don't care who he had it with. I'm just going to give my opinion, and we'll go around, and then you could bring that extra bit into it. But my feeling is, don't ask a player who could get hurt and be done with his career in 2 years to leave money on the table just to be competitive. Don't feel bad for the New York Rangers. They have just the same amount of money as everybody else. Shesterkin, the reason, Crosby and some other players have been able to leave money on the table is because they have unbelievable contracts for advertising and such in the U.S. and Canada. I don't know what Shesterkin has going. This is it. And the PAs put a lot of pressure on him and goalies to get as much as they can. So my feeling is get what you can, as much as you can. That's what he's worth. He's one of the 2 best goalies in the league. All right. Now, Anthony, go ahead.
No, you and I are in concurrence with this, but at the same time, I do understand things from the Rangers' perspective in terms of trying to make sure they're not becoming too top heavy and not able to, fill the rest of their ranks and have flexibility. So I do get that from LaGreca's standpoint. It makes perfect sense to ask that question as almost a devil's advocate.
No, you could ask it, but I just wouldn't expect the player to do it. Or
I would not. No, I would. The player, you don't. There's no. Like for a hometown, not even I hate that phrase, hometown discount, which I don't think really, sometimes very rare that happens. But
there is a solution here. But I don't know whether the Rangers will want to go down the same road that the Leafs did limitedly with Jake McCabe and that the Oilers did with Leon Draisaitl, and that's deferred money. I mean, you've got Dolan, who's got deep pockets. Defer some of the money to lower the cap hit. Now, if the PA is putting pressure on him, you got to hit the grand slam home run and make $12.5 million and set a new mark for goaltenders. Then there's nothing you can do. If he wants to work with you and he wants to get the most money he can, but also you want to limit your cap hit because you've got Panarin and you've got other players coming under contract, then you'll take some deferred money and lessen the load a little bit. But I don't know what's in his mind and what is the most important thing for him.
What do you think, Jen?
So a couple of things. So as you're well aware, Russ, and we've discussed this before, and the guys on the panel, I've said when Lundqvist signed his deal, he was overpaid by $1 million a year then, right? And he clearly didn't give the Rangers any kind of hometown discount.
Nope.
Making $8.5 million, and that $1 million a year would have gone a long way to them having another piece, especially in the bottom pairing defensively or in the bottom offensive trio, to give them support to try to win. With Shesterkin, clearly he wants the money. Look, he sees Panarin got $11.642 million. He's going to want to be above that. He wants to be the highest paid guy. Now, whether or not that's highest paid dollar-wise or that's highest paid percentage of the cap usage, if he gets the same amount of Lundqvist, he's probably looking at the $12 million range. But as Mike said, what is his driver? Is he looking for the money now? And he may not want to defer, period. I mean, Dolan, with the money he's got, may be more than willing to defer. His viewpoint, Shesterkin, is I want my money and I want it now, given the time value of money. I don't want it down the road. B, when it comes to hometown discounts, I personally think Alexis Lafreniere probably took about $500,000 less than he probably could have gotten on his contract. He took 7 years. If you think about it, he's making whatever he's making, it's $500,000 a year. And if you figure he could have made $8 million a year down the road, he probably left a good $11-12 million on the table.
But he's betting on himself. He's a younger guy. Shesterkin,
that he will make up down the road, right?
Correct.
But you have to factor in what will the cap be, and when he's 30, will he make $12 million? Well, let's say 13 or 14 that year to make up what he gave on the table, right? So part of that gets into what's the campaign impact going to be down the road? How big is the cap going to be? Does he want to be here? And then the other piece of the puzzle is you talked about, setting the new bar. Given the contracts that Swayman and a bunch of other guys get, who else is coming up down the pipeline that's even going to come close to challenging this number as a goalie in the near future? Because I don't see anybody down within the next 3 to 4 years at a minimum that's going to challenge whatever he gets in terms of his contract.
All of them are signed. Sorokin signed, Ottinger signed, Hellebuck signed, all of them.
That's my point. So he's going to set the bar. Nobody's touching that bar for years.
Well, that's what happened with Bob. Like, after
I was going to say, Bob set a plateau. Bob had set a plateau, and he was also at that time. He was a bit of a warning story for teams to not invest that amount of money until the Panthers were able to put a team around him. I mean, there was a certain point where they were wondering, with the goaltending situation, if they were going to keep him or not at a certain point, or try to, and
was it Bob said it, or was it Carey Price who said it first at 10.5?
Well, Price did, but Price didn't hang around long enough for it.
But they were both. But again, they were both warning stories, basically that Bob was kind of was underperforming initially in Florida,
Price
and
got
obviously Price things went south for Price.
Right. So that's where that landed. And yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. But the thing is, he's got to get signed by like the All-Star break. If he doesn't, that's a tremendous risk. You never know when talks are going to break down, or a player says, I'm going to wait till the end of the year now. It's kind of getting in the way. Once the player says that, you're in trouble. So they got to get him signed soon.
They signed Lundqvist in January of that
I
year.
I know.
Right, so it was the one he was on a 1-year
Well, that's like
contract.
the All-Star break or the Four Nations.
We all kind of knew that behind the scenes there were negotiations that were probably ongoing.
Yeah.
What's the difference here is we know that there were negotiations, and he turned out 11 mil over 8 years.
Right.
And now we got to go back to the drawing board.
Right.
I'll accept 11 million.
Rupees?
For what, Mike? What do you offer for 11 million?
Just me.
Yeah. Well,
as I said, rupees
and a couple guitars to be named later.
Yes, bass guitars. All right. So
all these guitars.
Staying on the track of goalie, we'll now go to the Sabres and UPL. Yeah, I think he's the number one now. I think he's earned it for now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's the number one for the next 5 years, but it does seem like he's the number one for now, Mike.
It does. He had 37 saves last night in a 5-1 victory over Ottawa, and that snapped a 3-game losing streak. But I mean, we're coming to the point here, which I think a lot of people thought they were going to come to, where he's clearly the number one. Ruff is a coach that likes to play his number one lots of games, and will playing in back-to-backs be enough for Devin Levi? And my answer is, I think they're stunting his growth by having him just be the backup and practicing with the team and playing 25 games at the most,
right?
Instead of playing in Rochester. But we know what the problem there is. He doesn't want to play in. He last year in January he said, "Okay, I'll go to Rochester. I'll play a lot." He enjoyed the experience. He gets sent down again, he won't enjoy it. And I think it'll cause a problem. But right now, I don't, Ruff has sort of danced around that situation. But right now, they're desperate. They got to win games. And the goaltender that gives them the best chance to win is Luukkonen. And their schedule is set up where they're not playing, at least the next week or so, they're not playing back-to-back. They're playing Thursday, Saturday, Monday. So they're playing every other day, and if he keeps winning and he stays hot and he plays the way he's been playing, he's going to play.
Anybody else have any thoughts on UPL?
No, I think I agree with Mike. It's also the optics, I guess, in terms of psychologically, is whether or not he's going to want to go down again, right? There's a certain cachet, clearly, to be an NHL goalie, and he was set up to be the goalie of the future. He's probably rushed, as you said, Ross, a bunch of times, and he probably shouldn't have been up to begin with. He should have been in Rochester longer. They opted to keep him up, and now they have a viable alternate option in net who's actually playing well and outplaying Levi, and he may not have a choice. I mean, they could send him down. He's kind of got no say in the matter, but whether or not he sulks when he goes down there is another matter altogether.
But if
he's getting paid.
Yeah, he's getting paid, and if he wants to, again, end of the day, if his objective is to start and not be sitting on the pine for long stretches, again, that's what he has to consider, that especially with his age. Again, Mike, I know you're saying he may not like it. Sometimes you got to do stuff you don't like in order to be able to get to the point you want to get to, or at the very least continue to stay. And again, it depends on the scheduling, the situation. He's going to get his starts here and there, but the question is, he's a developing goaltender. He should be getting in an every night situation,
right? And I'm just looking at the situation and how it could play out, because he's in the last year of his ELC.
Yep.
He may not see a path where he's going to be the number one in Buffalo. Does that mean he asks the team to trade him? Does it mean that he's open to signing an offer sheet someplace? There are teams out there for a young goaltender with a lot of promise. They'll say, okay, I'll roll the dice and sign him for $5 million, whatever, like Philip Broberg signed $1 below giving up compensation for a first round pick. Maybe the Sabres do that, but they have other free agents like Quinn and Peterka and McLeod and Byram that they need to sign. And then the cap from the Skinner buyout hits. So like all of a sudden the money that they have under the cap right now dries up pretty quickly.
Well, now it sounds like the Linus Ullmark situation. Now, because again, here's the worry. The worry is you get that with UPL, and then he goes elsewhere. You try Levi, and he's not as great as you thought. Right. Now it's like you only have so many goalies that will roll through a system. Like eventually, the goalies run dry on almost every team. There are a few exceptions, but
unless you take it the time out every single draft of it to select at least one.
Yeah, you got to go at least one or two every draft, sure. Right. But some teams don't, right? And so you do run that risk. That's the way I look at it. And speaking about risks, the Flyers are using Alexei Kolosov, and so he didn't have a stellar game. Neither did the team yesterday. No. And I'm not going to be like super critical because I feel like this is just a very tough situation, learning on the job. But I do have to say something that probably John Tortorella wouldn't like, and that is
saying something John Tortorella wouldn't like. I'm stunned.
Anybody saying something John Tortorella wouldn't like.
I know. He's got to play Ivan Fedotov, whether he likes it or not, while he's up. You can't play Kolosov X amount of games in a row until Sam Ursun gets there.
Again, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with starting him a few games this week to get and there's enough spacing between, and you get a little more of a bearing up. Now, if it goes past this week and Hurston isn't back, then you got to get Fedotov in. It just comes down to the fact that I don't think Tortorella doesn't trust Fedotov.
But
at this point right now, as long as the timeline is a week for Urson, I think he wants to see what he has in Fedotov.
Yeah, if it's a week.
I think that's the key there. If it goes over a week and you're still riding him and not throwing in Fedotov at least once or twice, to make sure not to burn the kid out, then obviously in that case you look at Torch and be like, okay, you need to like break it up a little bit for him.
Yeah, I mean, there's some times where teams have to play the backup whether they love to or not. Look at Anton Forsberg. Any other thoughts on Kolosov here though?
So I again, the lateral movement on again, the biggest thing I think that attracts Torch to Kolosov is he's got good. The lateral movement's good. There's times when his anticipation is off, and doesn't quite. He's getting, I think, better at seeing through the lanes and following things a little bit better. Like the one bad habit that Fedotov had was that he still continues to use his height to try to be able to see what's coming, and then he's not able to get down fast enough, which is another reason why I don't think Torts ultimately trusts him, because it takes too much time for him to get down in order to stop a shot. So again, I don't think we're all in the belief here that the Philadelphia Flyers are going anywhere this season. And I'm not saying,
we don't believe that, but I feel like the coach is struggling with
that. But again,
right
in light of other options, in light of the fact that that obviously they're not bringing Cal Peterson up because we know that Torts doesn't trust him.
Well, it's too much money.
They don't have any other goalie options other than Eetu Makiniemi.
Right.
And okay, good luck on that front.
He was good last game, just so you know.
He was, and maybe he gets a look. If it goes over a week, maybe you see the waiving. Maybe you see a waiver happen where Fedotov is put through waivers to go down to the Phantoms to get a little bit of time while maybe Makiniemi gets up here. But it's just from a goaltending standpoint, it's the complete polar opposite of last season's goaltending situation, where you had two goaltenders in Hart and Urson who gave you high quality play. And now the expectation is Urson, it's Urson, but you don't have a what you would say is a lockdown reliable backup. And now that Urson's out, you're really just kind of holding your breath, game at a time and hoping you're going to get a good performance out of one of them.
Do you feel though, like I feel, and you guys could answer this too, I'm watching, post games, and it feels like John is definitely more frustrated this year than any time last year.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, they were sneaking last year. They were in the exact situation that Torts likes, which is other teams were taking them for granted last year, and they were able to sneak up on teams. And this year, it's just, there's this, and again, this goes back to the goaltending. I feel like what allowed last year's team to play fairly well up through the holiday break was they had the confidence in that their goaltenders would cover for any aggressive mistakes that they would make. Now they're of two minds. We talked about disconnected, we've heard disconnected play for the entire month of October, and that's true. And now they're having to they can't kind of push up on the play, so they're constantly collapsing back
Right,
to protect the goaltenders. And that's the thing. I think that's what's kind of frustrating him, is because they know they can't do what they did last year.
Well, I mean, Jan, Torts from him coaching the Rangers as long as he did. He's an expert at squeezing every last drop of juice out of the lemon. And when you're playing Sean Couturier, 27 minutes a night?
No, not anymore. He finally learned.
Last year,
yeah.
before he got hurt, which was a miss. I think an abrogation of the responsibility of a head coach,
or a case that he did not trust the other centers that he had to be able to handle those minutes.
Great, but you don't play a guy who's coming off back surgery at 27 minutes a night. And Jan, my assertion with this situation with the Flyers is, if they were going to rebuild, the first thing you needed to do was fire John Tortorella, because the guy will not rebuild.
And they weren't going to do it once they should. Mike, under your premise, they shouldn't have never hired him in the first place.
Right.
And that's the thing. But now they're not going to fire him, because they're still on the hook, at least for 2 other coaches' contracts.
Then shut the hell up when it comes. Don't mention the goddamn word rebuild. You can't rebuild when you have a coach like John Tortorella. He wants to friggin' win.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's fair. That's a fair point.
All right, so now let's talk about the Leafs, because Mike, they scored on the power play. So I guess
now that Mike is triggered a little bit, let's talk about the Leafs.
Yeah. So I mean,
let's bring it back to the Leafs. It's all about the Leafs. Let's go.
They scored on the power play. They did the impossible by beating the Bruins, and I kid. And so yeah, I mean,
you're as good as the Flyers. Way to go.
Yeah, they're a little better now. But what do you think, Mike?
The Bruins are a shell of themselves this year, also right now.
Yeah, we'll get to them.
And the Leafs had a dominating performance against a struggling Bruins team without Austin Matthews, which, I mean, you take Austin Matthews off the power play and all of a sudden it scores. But I think one of the things, you see Matthew Nyes right now. I think he's got 7 or 8 goals. I think it's 7. And he's been really great on that number 1 line.
Yep.
And they put him in front of the net on the power play, and the Bruins had a tough time clearing him out because he's a big, tough kid.
Yep.
I mean, that might be something that, looking forward, that you have to do on that power play. Take out maybe a Tavares, put him on the second power play, or you have to have a net front presence. The Rangers have that with a guy like Kreider. All good power plays do. And I think Nyes has the hands to be able to cash in those close-in chances. But they got good goaltending from Stolarz, who seems to have right now more of a level of trust with Berube, because he's played well early on. But they have a bunch of back-to-backs, so Wall's going to get action. And I think one of the big things with the Leafs this year, you have to find out whether Joseph Woll is the number 1. You have to find out whether he can be, because if he can't, then you're going to have to go out and find one, because Anthony Stolarz sure as hell is not the number 1.
Yeah, okay, I could buy that. And again,
for how much?
There you go.
How much salary?
No, I'm just saying. He says I could buy that. I said, for how much you buying
it? Well, I mean, how many games will Joseph Woll be given to see if he's the number 1 or not, or if he could, stay healthy or not? What do you think?
For the year?
Not for the year, just like in the next, let's say, month.
I think he's got to play. I mean, I don't know how many games they play in
November.
November.
I know,
but I would say, like, if they play 12 games in November, he's got to play 8 of them. He's got to play the majority of the games. It can't be an even 50-50 split. Give them the majority of the starts. Like I said, I think they have 3 back-to-backs in November. Each one is going to play a game, but he's got to play the majority of the games, because you have to find out whether this guy can play regularly and play well. And if he can't, then Stolarz will be your fallback 1A. And it's a tandem situation. And right now it looks like Berube favors Stolarz, because Stolarz is a more veteran guy and he's played well and he's been healthy. But you have to find out whether Woll can play or not.
I mean, Berube knows Stolarz. There's probably a little built-in bias there, I think.
Sure.
from their Flyers days.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, there's a little bit there, but again, it's been a while. So at the
no,
same
I know,
time-
but you never know. Coaches keep track of guys. It's like I keep looking for a guy to replace Mike on this show. I just haven't found anybody.
You'll never will.
I never will. He's irreplaceable.
That's true.
Is it true? I don't know. So, Mike, one last thing, food-wise, we're into peppermint season. I am happy. See, we got out of pumpkin season, and now we're into peppermint season. It's everywhere. It's in chocolate. It's great.
I'm looking at my watch. It's November. November. We're peppermint season. It's November 6th. Now my pet peeve with you is that you're now rushing the holidays way too soon.
I'm not talking about a holiday. I'm just saying it's peppermint season.
It's not that. It is 80 degrees outside.
Right.
Well,
I'm not touching a damn thing of peppermint unless it's a peppermint mint.
It's not just peppermint. It's peppermint. It's mocha. It's gingerbread. It's
no.
Yeah.
And I'm going to
maybe in your
Russ because I like pumpkin Russ. So I'm sorry.
That's okay. You don't have to apologize.
That's fine. I still got my bag. I still got 2 bags left.
But I saw Lint
Lint
is pushing something peppermint. I'll give you one product that's surprisingly good with the different kind of peppermint. So basically, what was the product that was on Seinfeld?
Junior Mints.
Junior Mints. Thank you. Junior Mints do the striped kind of peppermint for the holiday season.
So it's like white with red stripes on it.
It's like crunchier. It's that type of, it's like the same kind of peppermint.
Stuff that gets stuck in, but this stuff that gets stuck in your molars.
Hard candy, and it's pretty awesome in a Junior Mint. So I do look forward to that. I admit I buy a box every year, and I'll probably try the Lint. What about hot chocolate? I mean, anybody like peppermint hot chocolate? I think it's good.
Nah.
No.
Don't go with the York peppermint patty if you're going to go with the peppermint.
That's always a classic.
Junior Mints are just small York peppermint patties. That's all they are.
They're different. No, I think it's different.
Because it's the mint is more gelatinous, whereas it's more solid. I said gelatinous on the show. Yes, I did.
Yes, that it is. That is. But so you guys don't have a favorite peppermint anything? You just
let me think.
Peppermint light flavors.
When they have certain ice creams will have the that's pretty good.
Like Friendly's peppermint stick is
they do one of those. Those are fun.
Hard finding a Friendly's these days, Russ. It's not.
I got one right down the block.
Friendly's anymore.
See, I have one down the block. It's literally a half mile away.
We had one about 2 miles away that closed. That was in there. It's got like 4 in my neighborhood, and all of them have closed over the years.
Wow. I'm the weird one who likes the odd holiday ice cream flavors like eggnog ice cream.
Ooh.
I've had gingerbread ice cream before. I've had eggnog ice cream. It's not that bad. I've had creme brulee also, which is pretty good.
Creme brulee is good.
Creme brulee is good, but it's not, to me, a creme brulee is kind of a thing that could be, although it's probably best in the winter. So maybe
it's got to be on fire though, right? You got to put it on
my wife's,
fire.
I mean, she loves her creme, like she'll just,
one
of her favorite things is just to tap the top of that thing.
Let's get a flamethrower to do a creme brulee.
Yeah, I mean, we could do it live on the show. All right. That's it for Off the Post. We'll catch everybody next time.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.